Well, Maricopa is one of those places that has been a key position in Arizona. For hundreds of years, people have been coming through this area. And what I'd like to do is tell you my top 10 places to find history that involves Maricopa that you can visit that are fairly close. The first is Hukum Reservation, just to the south of us, has 3 different museum sites. There's a Himdoc Museum, then they have the BIA House, which is Bureau of Indian Affairs, and it's the agent's house that's been restored. Then also the Catholic schoolhouse has been restored. So those gives you a lot of the history of Maricopa and the Native Americans just to the south. My second one is the Hukum Cultural Center, which is north of Maricopa. That is run by the Gila River Indian community. It's significant because not only does it have displays on the Akhmer Otham and Peeposh members of the tribe, but it also stores the artifacts from Snaketown. Snaketown was one of the most significant Hukum centers. In fact, in 1972, the federal government declared it as a national monument. Number 3 is the Sonora Desert National Monument. Just to the west of Maricopa is the National Monument, terribly underused, but through the National Monument was a thoroughfare that literally people have been using for centuries. When you go into that monument and you go through the trails through the center of the monument, it designates 9 different recognized trails, or 9 different aspects to the trail. My fourth spot to look at history, and that involves Maricopa, is the Gila Bend Museum and Chamber of Commerce. So when you go into Gila Bend, there's a little Chamber of Commerce visitor center, and right in the back of that, they have a small museum. And in that museum, it talks about these trails and has pictures and exhibits and even some artifacts from there. Number 5, west of Gila Bend, there's a park called Painted Rock, and it is the petroglyphs of the Hukum people. It's significant in that it is such a clear place that many of the folks who came along those trails and kept journals describe this area. The next site that is a little bit less known and people kind of look over it, but I-10 and Casablanca Road. There's an old structure that used to be the cultural center of the Gila River community. They've closed that cultural center, but in front of that, they have displays and information about the Japanese internment camp. So there's about 4 panels that talk about where the camps were, what happened, a little bit of the history of the Japanese internment camps that were just outside of the city of Maricopa. Number 7 is if you go into Saskatoon, which is really the capital of the Gila River community. There's a park in the middle of Saskatoon that is a commemorative park that talks about Ira Hayes, talks about the veterans of World War I. One of the first soldiers to be killed in World War I happened to be a member of the Gila River community. The next site that I'd really suggest is in Casa Grande. Casa Grande has a museum. That's the old church, stone church building. But because Casa Grande and Maricopa paralleled a lot of our history, when you go in and look at that museum, an awful lot of the history that is in that museum is also the history of Maricopa. My ninth choice is the Casa Grande Ruins National Monument. This has been around for a long time. It's again one of those places that were recorded in lots of different histories, and when different people came through the area and they kept journals, they mentioned this area so that you can really tell. In August 3rd, 1918, it officially became a national monument. So this year it's celebrating its 100th birthday as a national monument. My final site that is close that I think you have to go to have a feel for the history of this area is Florence. Florence has a state historic park called McFarland, and at that historic park it talks about not only the history of Arizona and the history of Pinal County, but it also has some great displays on the World War II German prison camp that was there. Also, the Pinal County Historical Society has a museum. I think one of the more interesting parts is that it also has a whole section that looks at the state prison. Then finally there in Florence, one of the places or buildings that you see right away is the second Pinal County Courthouse. The fun thing about that is that when they built it, they ran out of money before they put in a clock on the top. So they painted a clock in the tower. And when asked about it, they explained that they ran out of money, and they said, besides, the time is correct twice a day. There's an old expression that's attributed to Dr. White from the University of Washington. He said that Americans love history, but they have little use for historians. And we all like our history, and we all like those stories that we have grown up with and things of that nature. But it's nice to go to these places and see a little bit of the, a little bit more of the correct history, some of the artifacts, some of the information that we might have missed in the folklore or the family stories that we might have heard over the years.